a viral sickness in the United States. The kinds of mental illness that are being spawned by TikTok are quite real. And if you ever take a look at Chinese TikTok versus American TikTok, you can see the difference. American TikTok is all about transing the kids. Chinese TikTok is all about doing math problems because China is not interested in transing its own children.
I'm confused. There's a lot of things going on here. So China good? Oh, sorry, China bad. But China good because no cat boys. Cat boys bad, China good. But TikTok bad because China, but Chinese TikTok good because cat boys. If I understand this correctly. TikTok, a majority American-owned corporation, I should add. The majority of stakeholders and owners of TikTok are Americans, so a majority American-owned company apparently is getting banned. Well, at least the House just passed that they feel that every single American investor should have to divest in 165 days. I think that's how long they're giving them. You have 165 days to pull your monies out. Pull it all into, I don't know, Doge, Shiba Inu, crypto, Schlurm. Whatever is popular right now. I don't know. I'll wait to see what Elon Musk, is promoting.
Is set to vote this week on a bill that could ban TikTok in the United States.
We simply cannot allow an app controlled by our nation's foremost adversary and competitor to take over the American.
Lost, SIUX. Good to see you. Everyone check out Lost channel. This is so ridiculous. in what way does the United States operate in terms of like, hey, this company X good, this company bad, except when it comes to companies in China, right? Like Huawei, for example, another great example of yet another monstrously huge corporation, one that exists internationally that sells a lot of electronics, but they're super, super evil compared to, say, Apple. Right? Like for me, the nation state itself doesn't really separate the way that a lot of these multinational corporations engage. I mean, a lot of the billionaires and billionaire-owned corporations in China, they're also bad. Yeah, I'm sorry, weird commies. The few people that think for some reason China happens to be the communist utopia that they're all looking forward to. It's not, I know it's socialism with Chinese characteristics, but it's still a capitalist hellscape. In fact, there's nightmarish stuff that goes down in China, such as the Foxconn plants, where people and the workers' rights are so limited that people actually try to unalive themselves. And the solution to that wasn't to give workers better rights. It was to set up nets to catch the workers in case they tried that. That's like how bad things are under that system. Yeah, there are certainly some things you can point to towards China doing well and China doing horrifyingly. And one of the things that I think a lot of the, again, weird people on the internet sometimes forget is that like there's entire worker cities, like entire villages that are constructed, and in large part the housing is dependent on whether or not you are working for the company, as are a number of other things that you need and necessitate to enjoy a rich, fulfilling life. So you have actual bosses. Like this is the same thing as the Amazon towns, the ones that you like might get really mad about, be like, that's dystopian. What? A Jeff Bezos style city where all these Amazon employees live in, but they also eat the Amazon fucking mulch that comes into the trough and all that, and they have to sleep in Amazon beds, and they're only allowed to buy Prime products all the time. And like, what is this? Well, yeah, that also happens in countries like China, for example. But that notwithstanding, the idea that this company could, say, Meta, Facebook, X, Twitter, Instagram, all the subsidies that Facebook owns, all that, they're okay. I mean, little Cambridge Analytica never hurt anybody. So they're fine, but TikTok, evil. Yes, decidedly evil. Well, what do they do that's so much more evil than the other companies? Well, they're radicalizing the youth. How? Well, it seems like a lot of topics that young people are interested in are going more viral than topics that young people aren't interested in. Yeah, that's kind of how social media works, algorithms, whatnot, that whole, yeah, it's not good or healthy. I'm not here to defend it. I'm just saying, how does this differ distinctly from, say, Facebook or a lot of the other ones and how they operate? In fact, you could make a bigger argument for, say, Twitter in its current iteration, really weaponizing based on, the desires of Elon Musk to have a lot of incendiary content, a lot of fighting stuff, fighting words popping up on there on a regular basis. A lot of these companies sell vast amounts of our data to third parties. a lot of them sell them to American companies, by the way. A lot of AI companies are buying up vast amounts of user data because they need more stuff to train their machine learning on. And as they run out of stuff, as in human interactions, they're going to have to start training themselves on themselves, which leads to AI incest. And we've all seen what happens with AI incest. It's monstrous. It just makes no sense. It's just a whole bunch of gibberish and inbreeding. So the AI incest has to stop. These companies recognize this. And so they are trying to buy vast amounts of data, even from old social media sites that aren't as populated anymore, like Tumblr. Like the entire Tumblr data set is trying to be bought by AI companies because they're like, we need more human interactions. We need more humans interacting with humans and how that sounds and looks. Because if we train our data sets on, machine regurgitated information based on that, it just starts to get incesty, just little whole strange. So we got to fix that, right? Again, what's making TikTok uniquely evil in this respect, that suddenly, Congress is like, you have to actually take out all of your investment capital from this corporation.
American media landscape.
The legislation would require ByteDance, the Chinese parent company of the popular app, to sell off its stake in the company. Otherwise, TikTok could be blocked from American phones. Biden has said he will sign the bill if it's passed, despite TikTok's mass popularity.
And don't get me wrong, I just want to point this out in case anyone's not recognizing this. Other countries do this as well. China does this to a lot of social media sites of the United States. In fact, there's a well-renowned amount of information that you can't receive in China because of their massive blocks on sections of the internet. That includes a lot of popular apps that you might use here, as well as anybody being able to Google what happened at Tiananmen Square, stuff like that. Yes, absolutely, other countries do this kind of stuff. That doesn't mean those processes should be emulated, right? Or repeated, or like that. That's something that obviously you look towards. Like, that's a criticism the US has of China and Chinese censorship a lot. They'll oftentimes say that, right? It's really unusual that there's like a whole bunch of websites you can't access, a whole bunch of apps you can't use, a whole bunch of things that aren't permitted to be in China. It seems like if companies do want to operate in China, they have to follow and adhere to extremely strict guidelines and actually change the content they present on their own systems and give people access to. That's a bad thing. We don't want that here. This is freedom. The US of A. We don't do that here. Well, it seems like you do.
With more on this, I want to bring in tech analyst Carmi Levy. Carmi, good morning to you. So do you think that the U.S. is going to go through with this? I mean, banning TikTok seems like a very tall mountain to climb. This is an app used by millions of people.
A ban is like the nuclear option, Marcia.
This is going to do great with the youth, by the way. Well, what are you giving them? All the younger voters, the people who have a lot of energy, who might be wanting to canvass for a political party coming up in this major election where it's like, hey, the choices are between Genocide Joe and the fascism. What did you want, the Nazis or the guy basically who's like Nazi light in terms of him wanting to support a ongoing genocide? Who do you want to choose? And then it's like, well, what else is going on? Well, you know how you all love TikTok? That seems to be the social media app of choice by younger generations. Happens to be your particular social media du jour. We're banning that. Yeah, we're gonna make sure that you don't have because the Chinese. You have to do this. If you don't do this, the Chinese rule the world, and we got to stop it. They're using it to brainwash you and to turn you into free Palestine peoples. If you didn't have TikTok, you wouldn't believe that. It has nothing to do with the horrifying footage that a lot of you have access to and are seeing every single day of the war crimes and just the endless amount of war crimes you get broadcast into your fucking cortex every single morning when you turn on your apps. Yeah, it's specifically the TikTok that's doing it and radicalizing all of you.
And we'd be forgiven for thinking that, haven't we seen this before? Indeed, we have. Donald Trump tried the same thing when he was president, tried to force.
Let's make an actual public social media site. So here's something very interesting. If you listen to the latest Adam Conover podcast, he's interviewing someone about social media, and he brings this up. This is actually a little bit true. Mastodon, which in itself is decentralized. Anyone who wants to can start a Mastodon server. You can create one, and then you can host it, and then you can do whatever you want with it. That can include hosting pictures, video, depending on how fast your server speeds are. That's how fast the entire experience is going to be for anyone using it. So it's decentralized in that anyone can create it and anyone can make one. In pursuant of that, you may notice if you've ever tried using Mastodon, it is very unaddictive. As in, it's like I'm told, because I don't smoke cigarettes, but I'm told if you go from smoking mainstream brand name cigarettes to something that doesn't have any additives like American Spirit, you can feel the difference because it doesn't have all those juicy, beautiful chemicals that are just like accelerating how addicted you are to the nicotine. So in that, it's like, well, it's a little less of an experience. Then if you go from that to something, say like the patch or like one of those like inhalers or respirators that just have a little nicotine in them, all of a sudden that's a really lowered version of it. That's what that is what I feel the equivalent of Mastodon is, where it doesn't farm like the algorithms of it don't intentionally farm like anger and responses and stuff. It just posts stuff in the order in which it's posted, which again just makes the most sense, right? You follow the people you want to follow, and then it takes those people's posts, it posts them in your timeline in the order in which they have been posting them, and that's how you receive them. It doesn't show you how many likes and engagement every single thing has just off the default, so you don't know whether things are making people sadder, madder, angrier, happier. So it doesn't actually, stimulate a lot of the same things that you have now been becoming increasingly addicted to by the social medias. So that same feeling you get when you like log on to Twitter, where you're like, whoa, oh, I can't believe what JK Rowling, fuck you, JK Rowling, blah. That you don't get that same experience. And because of that, it feels like it's harder to get mass adoption of something where when people use it, they're like, oh, this is a lot more chill. Yeah, it's essentially what social media is supposed to be. If you take out all the really, really addictive, gambling like casino experience, which most social media kind of weaponizes, the whole kind of like, who knows what I'm going to see right now, and then everything lines up, and then it's like, whoa, I'm happy or angry or horny, mostly angry. That whole thing, that's one of the unfortunate aspects of it. I'm an old millennial who remembers social media was a website where you posted stuff for your friends. Yeah, that used to be the thing. Forums, they used to be it. There was a whole bunch of like some forums were just text, and they started having pictures, and then some of them even had very rudimentary forms of video, and then we got all kinds of communities, and then those built upon each other, and then we went from like one of those like IRC chat boards and stuff like that to actual full on social media experiences. And then along comes MySpace, and everyone just had to have a personality with their own dancing babies and all that other weird shit. Yeah.
A sale to an American company. At one point, Walmart was at the front of the line to purchase the American interests of ByteDance,
Usenet,
the
yeah,
TikTok app,
and GeoCities websites.
itself.
I remember those.
And that ultimately collapsed under pressure from the courts. The courts rejected it. Montana tried the same thing within its state borders and ran into the same problem here. So what's changing here now is that they're trying to fix it through legislation. In other words, make sure that there's a law in place so that it sticks, that it survives any possible challenge in the court. But a ban is an incredibly difficult thing to do, both from a legislative perspective as well as a technological one, to stop hundreds of millions.
I'm an old boomer where social media was meeting your friends at the park and we talk face to face. My God, what? Without screens? How would you verify whether or not someone was telling the truth at any given time if you didn't search it on Wikipedia?
I think there are 170 million users of TikTok in the US alone. To stop them from using it on their phones, prevent anyone else from accessing it, geo-block it, and then
hey fam, I accidentally got double my order at Popeyes, which I'm already double what I normally order, so I'm like, oh wow, that's a lot of Popeyes.
Make sure that any workarounds are addressed as they come up, because inevitably they will be. It's a massive job on a number of fronts, and it's never been done before, all to keep one app out of the hands of millions of people.
Forgive me for sounding cynical, but good luck with that.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Hey, Canadian news peoples is laughing at you, America. You don't want to be cucked by the Canadian fucking news hosters. Come on.
Exactly it. It makes for really great
Oh, good luck with that,
theater.
eh?
And let's remind ourselves, it's 2024. It's an election year in the U.S. And so here you've got both parties. This is a bipartisan effort at committee level.
They agree, yeah.
They agree. I mean, how often do they agree on anything? But it's...
Yeah, I mean, they agree for almost like some overlapping reasons, some dissimilar reasons, that's for sure. But yeah, it doesn't look great for especially the youth and the young voters who are currently absolutely disgusted by the Democrats. And yes, I'm sure the same ones who are disgusted by the Democrats have seen that, Donald Trump would be absolutely no better. In fact, he'd be decidedly worse. I mean, Donald Trump has remained mostly quiet about the Israel-Gaza current ongoing ethnic cleansing / genocide up until very recently, when he finally addressed it and pretty much said that he wants like a final solution, aka the final solution. So it's like, okay, so Donald Trump is clearly going to be very aggressive. Same thing with Pierre Poilievre in Canada. Whenever asked, it's way more extreme than what the Liberals have said or proposed. He said that you need to eliminate Hamas. It's not over until every single Hamas is killed and destroyed, kind of stuff. Yeah, okay, fine. The right wing and the Conservatives are decidedly going to be even more aggressive, even though what the Liberals are doing is still basically aiding and abetting the ongoing project. Both sides, terrible. One side, worse. But you need the youth to help you win the election. And if you keep doing policies where it really seems like, so the Republicans want to ban TikTok. Yes. The Democrats are trying to ban TikTok. Yes. The Democrats have passed a bill in the House that would effectively get all American investors in TikTok to have to pull out. Yes. And would also have to force the company to sell in China to a third party. Yes. Well, I mean, if you were a single issue voter and that issue was genocide, that one's going to be really hard to sell people on. If your second one was that you're addicted and love TikTok, that one's also going to be hard to sell people on.
Scores points with the voters, and both parties know it, and so they're pushing for it. Hey, when in doubt, let's just do some China bashing, whether it ultimately means that
Hey, Danarchist, actually, I was going to play a clip. I heard that Knowledge Fight, you posted something. I hadn't watched it yet, though. Let me find it.
the US is safer, and there are concerns around TikTok. It's a huge harvester of data. There's some very shadowy connections between the company and the Chinese government.
Ron DeSantis is calling out libs of TikTok. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh my God. There's so many good stories to talk about today. I haven't even started on any of them. Yes. Nice. Oh, all right. Let the ladies fight.
We don't know for sure if our data ends up in the hands of the Communist Party.
DJ Danarchist. I definitely don't endorse tapping the glass like this, but I do think Alex Jones' response to being asked about Knowledge Fight is pretty interesting. Elon, you suck, as does your platform. It's the worst video platform.
Since you're on the air, go ahead.
Hey, Alex. Can't wait to hear you come back from break with the Doors. This is the end. So fitting. But being this far along, I think it's time that you acknowledge Knowledge Fight and talk
I
about.
appreciate your call. I really appreciate your call. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and talk to Heather in Pennsylvania. Heather, you're on the air. Welcome. Texas, you're on the air.
Didn't want to talk about that much. Lance, did you see the news that tagged you in the Leftist Mafia Discord? I have not known that yet. I can see why Alex Jones is probably terrified of Knowledge Fight. If you don't know Knowledge Fight, by the way, and this is a plug for them, all they do every single week on their podcast is break down all of the lies that Alex Jones tells in his regular broadcasts, like piece for piece. Honestly, if anyone's ever going to say something like Alex Jones is always right, or Alex Jones was right, or Alex Jones actually, he's almost always wrong. The vast majority of everything he says, from being factually incorrect to lies to distortions to outright fabrications, and his predictions just famously wrong all over the place. And if you take of the thousands of those that he might say or do in a single episode, and take one in which he was slightly close to the truth or turned out to be kind of close, yeah, that's again you using very, very selective judgment to try and say that he's right, when again, listen to Knowledge Fight, it does the entire thing really well.
But I think it's a safe bet that it does. And so politically, it makes a lot of sense to do that. But, logistically, really, does this ultimately make us safer?
Yeah, I mean, the Nostradamus effect is one way of putting it, because if you don't know, Nostradamus famously, he spoke in poems, almost in riddles, if you will. And so, you can interpret what he said to mean anything down the road, right? You can basically be like, yes, the falcon rises as the two dragons descend, their eyes as gold. That was 9/11? That's 9/11? That was him predicting 9/11? What? The two dragon? Okay, fine. Those are what? The tower? So yeah, in hindsight, maybe he was totally correct.
Again, the technologist in me, I'm looking at the app stores, millions of apps already there. You'd have to address more than just one app for this to really result in greater technological safety for Americans.
So what's the workaround here, Carmi, to avoid an all-out ban?
I mean, to avoid a ban, what the company needs to do is sell itself to an American-owned entity, and what that does is it means that if a Chinese-owned company no longer owns it, and an American company does, then it's no longer subject to that requirement for all Chinese companies to adhere to the rules of the Communist Party of China, that you have to sign that deal if you do business in China. If the government comes calling, you must do what they say, up to and including sharing data with them. ByteDance, for its part, says it has never signed a deal. It would never hand over the data if it was approached. It has never been approached. But we know those promises really don't hold a lot of water. So by shifting ownership of the app to an American company, you essentially cut off that connection to the Chinese government, and in theory anyway, ensure that American data collected from American devices does not end up in Chinese government hands.
So if, and it's a big if, there's no TikTok, where does the
Mike Thompson, thank you very much for the generous $3 donation. I appreciate that.
this leave people not only who are addicted, but also who use TikTok as their profession? Their livelihoods depend on TikTok, Carmi.
They very much do. There's a social media economy.
Not to mention a lot of journalists. There's a lot of journalists who have moved over to doing stuff on TikTok. I know it sounds silly, right? But like take Rachel Gilmore, for example. She was working for corporate media in Canada. She was reporting a lot on the alt-right, on fascies. By doing that, she's become the target of a lot of the alt-right. They've done all kinds of campaigns, from like doxing her to, you know, saying the most horrifying things about her online, all that kind of stuff. As the downsizing of a whole bunch of major media institutions happened, she transitioned to posting updates and, you know, little journalistic, let's just say, bites to consume on TikTok, and has found a lot of success doing that, as have a lot of other people who have taken to TikTok. TikTok's not specifically political, and if anything, it's a really hard place to be very political, because TikTok censors a lot of the words that you say. It's a very sanitized social media platform, in large part due to wanting to keep it about advertising, cute cat and puppy videos, cute dancing videos, makeup tutorials, stuff like that. But there is a lot of people who have found a lot of success talking about a lot of issues, and not just journalists, by the way. There's a lot of youth who have been doing incredible videos on, say, the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, and making videos about that, explaining it in very clear and plain terms for, again, other people perhaps in their age demographic to be able to understand how they're talking. Yeah, as you probably tell, I can't use half the lingo that they say, you know? Meat cute? What the fuck is that? Why not be cute and meat and or do neither? I don't understand. What's with this fucking language?
Around TikTok. Influencers, of course, their entire careers are built around it. Small businesses, particularly, use the app to connect with their audiences. It's a very efficient way to market your products and services. And if
I just learned what poggies means. Poggers. You know, now there's all these new terms, and they're like, oh, poggers, that's a boomer term. Boomer term.
That goes dark, obviously, that will have a differential impact on that market. And even though this legislation,
why not a German or other country you can sell it to? Yeah, I mean, I think, was it one of the people from Blizzard said that they wanted to potentially buy it? Am I remembering that correctly? Like, it could just end up being bought by an American company. But this sets a pretty fucked up precedent, right? That at any given time, if Americans just suddenly feel that, like, oh, let's target this specific social media company. Why? Well, because they sell user data, and that's bad. Yeah, all of them do. Facebook, did you not see the whole Cambridge Analytica thing? Yeah, this one's not American. So the non-American one's bad. The American one's fine to do that. Yeah, take all of your user data, sell it to third parties, do with it as you will. In fact, you can even sell that user data to third parties in China. That's totally fine and or legal. We're totally cool with that. But if it happens to be this specific social media company,
legislation does not apply to Canada. A lot of Canadian users of TikTok, of course, much of
I'm in the US, not using the VPN, and can still use TikTok just fine. It hasn't been banned yet. It's being banned. It's in the process. The House just passed the bill that said that American investors have to divest in 165 days, and then it has to be sold to a non-Chinese third party.
Their audience resides in the U.S. They would,
because, yeah, as multiple people pointed out, it happens to be an American majority-owned company. The majority of shareholders, those who own the most stock in TikTok, are Americans. So, yes, it may have been invented by a Chinese corporation, but it is American-owned.
That access as well. It will hurt north of the border too. And so I would expect anyone who's using TikTok as a key pillar of their career planning or marketing strategy, you've got to be asking yourself the question now, if it goes dark 6-ish months from now, what do I do? What's my plan B? It's never too early to start alternatively planning, because at some point this may yet come to pass, not only in the US, but in other countries too, including ours.
Carmi Levy, he's a tech analyst. Carmi, thank you so much for all of that.
Oh, it looks like Ben Shapiro's happy. He's got a video saying this is the end of TikTok, as well as the end of the retirement age, according to good old Ben Shapiro. What's Stephen Colbert got to say? I haven't listened to him in like 3 years because he really sucks now.
China could spy on us or brainwash our youth with propaganda, or worst of all, put us on a mailing list. Ni hao, Stephen. Old Navy capris are now 4 for 1.
Oh, God, this is so painful. I knew he was bad, but every time I dip in, it's kind of like, okay, I've heard there's an exception to this. I've heard the new season of The Simpsons, season 34 or whatever. I saw, you know, Super Eye Patch's Wolf new video. Apparently, it's a good season, so this may be the exception. But prior to that, anytime someone's like, hey, did you see The Simpsons? Like, no. Why would I do that to myself? I don't want to hurt myself, okay? Season like 3 to 8 is pretty much, and you know, parts of 9 and parts of 2 for sure, is pretty much what I consider some of the funniest, if not the funniest, you know, seasons of television ever. Period. It's some of my most formative and biggest, you know, like it inspired me to want to be a comedian. It inspired me to want to get into cartooning. It inspired me to want to get into writing. It inspired me to want to be even more creative. Everything about those, I'm just like, oh, yeah, I do. They are sacred, just incredible concentrations of some of the funniest moments I think in television history. I don't need to see the new ones. They hurt me. That when they're on TV, it hurts me to watch them. Yeah, it's just weird. The zombie Simpsons, and then just like it's like watching just like a beautiful bird die before your eyes, and you don't want to watch that, you know. It's not fun. But apparently the new season, according to Super Eye Patch Wolf, who is probably one of the biggest Simpsons fans on the internet, he says that the new season is actually a 7 out of 10, which is really high, meaning The Simpsons is good again, in large part due to apparently the writers sat down and said, let's just completely reinvent everything. Like, don't do what we have done in the past. Don't try to write yet another season. We don't have to think of what jobs can Homer have that he hasn't had already, because he's had like, you know, 800 different jobs or whatever. Just think of reinventing the very concept and using this as less of a show that you're writing scripts for and more of like a canvas, as in like think of The Simpsons as the medium. So it's, yeah, it can be anything from anime to something else, but it's The Simpsons as the core of what you're doing, but make anything you want with that and go. That's apparently, I haven't seen it yet though, but I've heard that apparently it's good.
Bizarre coalitions forming over whether to ban TikTok in the United States. Let me be clear. TikTok should in fact be banned if they will not divest of their Chinese ownership.
Well, I mean, they're all clear as day, I would say. Yeah, just you can't have companies that effectively have Chinese ownership operating in the United States. You can certainly buy their goods and services, all the manufacturing in China. I mean, that's pretty much necessary in large part to have cheap consumer goods in America. So you're going to want to keep buying a lot of Chinese products and having things manufactured in China, or Chinese-owned corporations in other countries, say like countries in Africa, like Djibouti, where there are a lot of manufacturing plants that produce products cheaply for Chinese manufacturers that in turn then get sold to America. That's all fine and good. But TikTok specifically, yeah.
It is a Chinese social media apparatus. That is what TikTok is. And again, we're on TikTok because that's where the kids are, and we will continue.
Shameless fucking hypocrites. No silent protest, eh? Even though it's like, that's where the kids are. We're not on there because, you know, we're pro-Chinese or pro-China or pro-CCP. None of that. We're on there specifically because that's where the kids are. We got to radicalize them, right? It's like, well, aren't you contributing to the entire ecosystem of TikTok? And perhaps there will be some of your own base who goes onto that social media app, downloads it even, to consume more Daily Wire content.
Continue to post on TikTok and on every other outlet where the kids are, because I think it's important for people to hear messages that are not.
Whoa, isn't this grooming? Isn't this what the right calls grooming? Aren't you admitting to grooming, Ben? This sounds kind of like you're trying to indoctrinate children. Yeah.
Not actually just left-wing messages. With that said, TikTok is a Chinese intelligence gathering tool. TikTok is also
again, like this idea that Twitter was this massive liberal, free speech, barren fucking, institution where all the libs were basically just trying to censor all the speech of the conservatives, all a lie. Like, you have but to look to Elon Musk taking it over, completely fucking the whole thing up, and then having to reapply a lot of the old rules that he took down, because it's like, oh yeah, it's not just a massive, just like, liberal cesspool. It's a corporation that wants to make profit and is doing it in the same way that a lot of other social media companies are trying to make profit. And then in the case of TikTok, yes, they are doing the same shitty shit that every single other major social media company does. I'm not here to defend the structures of these mass corporations, but like the hypocrisy is wild.
A viral sickness in the United States, the kinds of mental illness that are being spawned by TikTok are quite real. And if you ever take a look at Chinese TikTok versus American TikTok, you can see the difference. American TikTok is all about transing the kids. Chinese TikTok is all about doing math problems because China is not interested in transing its own children.
I'm confused. There's a lot of things going on here. So China good? Oh, sorry, China bad. But China good because no cat boys. Cat boys bad, China good. But TikTok bad because China, but Chinese TikTok good because catboys. If I understand this correctly.
So there's a big battle that's now broken out between people on the right over whether to ban TikTok or to force TikTok to divest of its Chinese ownership. According to the New York Times, House Republican leaders are moving this week to pass legislation that would force the Chinese owners of TikTok to sell the platform or face being barred in the United States. That's even after Donald Trump came out against targeting the popular social media app he once vowed to ban. Representative Steve Scalise, who's the majority leader, said on Monday that the House would try to speed the bill to passage under special procedures reserved for non-controversial legislation. There's a 13-page bill. It's the product of the select.
So shouldn't you be happy? Isn't this you getting everything you want? Or is it bad simply because Democrat? Anything Democrat do bad?
I think two things can be true at once. Okay. Facebook can also have serious problems. Also, it's not owned lock, stock, and barrel by the Chinese government.
Oh, so you'll like this one. TikTok, the majority of the shareholders are American. Yeah. Yeah. So there's that part, if you want to add that.
And is not being used as an intelligence gathering tool by the Chinese. The fact that kids would go crazy over a thing does not mean that you shouldn't do it. My kids go crazy over stupid crap all the time, and I say no to them all the time because that's my job as a parent. The legislation is one of several efforts over the past year aimed at curtailing TikTok because of concerns that ByteDance's relationship with Beijing poses risks to national security. President Biden, for his part, has said that he would sign it. Here was Joe Biden saying that he would sign the ban on TikTok as long as it's still under Chinese ownership.
Do you still support banning TikTok?
I just wanted to quickly also play Ben Shapiro's wondrous recent revelation about retiring. Apparently, he doesn't think people 65 years or older should be able to retire because you lose any sense of purpose once you do. Yeah, pretty messed up. Very dystopian view of the world in which your only fulfillment or joy can come from working. And it's also, it really puts into question what the very concept of work is. Because the way Ben puts it is that, like, talk to anybody who's like retired and who's older, and basically they all end up dying unless they have some kind of job or work. And so that's basically what you need, is you need people to be able to work forever. And in that way they will be fulfilled. And then it's like, you may find that some people hated their like 9-to-5 jobs, but they could have something they love, like pottery. And then once they retire, they start doing lots and lots of pottery. You could consider that work because pottery at the end of the day is constructing something, building something. It is both art and it is something practical that we need inside of our houses to be able to drink and eat food off of. So in that sense, yes, they're technically working, but they're doing something they love, and they don't think of it as work. They think of it as creative outlet. And so, yeah, the form, the function, where the two things intersect, all that kind of stuff. But to say that like the very value of your existence should come from previous, like, I've got a lot of jobs that I've had in my life that I absolutely despised. I wouldn't want to do those forever. I wouldn't want to clean movie theater seats forever and vacuum people's vomit and popcorn off and then gum that sticks to the bottom, and you had to use this like spray that like kind of froze it. It was kind of like this freezing spray, and then you would have to scrape off the gum and all. Like, I wouldn't want to do that, you know, once I hit 65 until whenever I, you know, meet the grand maker. I wouldn't want to do that forever. But then certainly there's other jobs that I'd probably do if I had the physical ability to do so. You know, like I like drawing, I like cartooning, I like writing. If I can still do that, I would still do that, even if I wasn't being paid for it. And yeah, I would get fulfillment from it, kind of thing.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Can you please hit the like and subscribe button and maybe leave a comment? It really does help the videos out. But first, the people who produce everything you see before you and make this entire channel possible: Amazing Fletch, Anna Loves Riley, Ariane McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Salim, Multimondi, Omni, Peanut Butter Blondie, Political Puppy, Quiet 185, Rachel K, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Ruby K, Cernicus, Spinach Monster, Stellar Vision, Sebastian Demel, Trevbot.exe, Words Greenwood, and Travis McClinton. And also, thank you to every other person who helps fund this show. Their names are on the screen right now. It would not be possible without every single one of them. We cannot thank you enough. And if you want to join the Patreon, please come to patreon.com/theserfs and help us exist.